Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So, the topic of today is Halloween. No. We're going to talk about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I believe the first segment of this, as we're going to have 3 sessions, this is the first of them, is discussing the love of the Prophet, or loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in order to love someone or something, you have to have some kind of context, some understanding about that individual. Is there anybody brave enough to tell me who they love? Or if it's a thing or an object? I know you guys are not shy.
Mom.
Huh? Your mom? Very good.
Siblings.
Pizza.
Love pizza. Must be hungry.
Siblings.
Siblings. Very good.
My grandparents.
Grandparents. Very good. And it would go on and on. So now if I followed up those questions with either your siblings, you would know some details about them, right? Their age, when they were born, their birthday. If I asked you about the pizza, you would tell me which type, You would have probably your top 3. You would have a specific type of pizza it's usually your go-to type, right? Now bringing that all into context with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we would all then claim to love the Prophet, right? That's something that we're probably raised with or told to do. That this is your Prophet, therefore you must love him. And to some extent, that's fine, that's good. But then if I were to follow up the same questions in terms of his age when he died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he became a prophet, who his parents were, then I would expect some answers with those basics as well, right? There should be some type of formulated answer or response. But a lot of the times we see that love is probably not backed up with much context, with much background. And so we're at a paradigm where we say one thing, but then again, when we look into our hearts, our minds, how much of that love is actually backed up by knowing the Prophet ﷺ, his struggles, which we'll get into, just knowing him as an individual, as a person. And this is not to make us feel like, oh yeah, you're right, like shame on me. This is not about that. Things start, when change happens, be optimistic. Change happens today. Let me tell you about my mom. My mother, she actually married a very pious man, okay? And this man was amazing, okay? My mom married somebody very amazing. He used to give to the poor. He used to wake up in the middle of the night. He used to fast like he would never stop fasting. He used to forgive like he had no anger in his heart. My mother is actually the same mother as everyone else. And our mother actually married the Prophet ﷺ. When I say my mother and your mother, the Prophet's wives are our mothers. So when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, no, those mothers were still our mothers, were the mothers of the companions forever and ever. Meaning what? It is not permissible for any man to marry the Prophet's wives even after the Prophet's death, because that is technically speaking your mom, your mother. I like to give it that way because if that builds that close relationship, everyone here by default almost loves your mother. When I talk to you about your mother, you know the sacrifices that she went through. She changed your diapers. She dealt with your temper tantrums even today. She dealt with your many requests. She tried to cultivate you into the person that you are today. She tried to steer you and keep your focus and your mind at a certain direction, even though you did not understand it. That was your mom. And because of all of those things that she went through, you have this love that you cannot just measure. But when we go back to the Prophet ﷺ, we know that no human being has ever had a more abundant or enduring body of literature written about him. than our Prophet ﷺ? How many biographies were conducted and dedicated to our Prophet ﷺ? How many poems were comprised just to praise him? And when we say poems, we're not talking about, a couple lines here and there. We're talking books where the author would calculate each ending word to rhyme in the most beautiful and significant way in order to try to illustrate his own love for the Prophet ﷺ. How many assemblies like today have gathered just to talk about him? How many conferences and lofty summits that were made in order to talk about a person who they couldn't even capture everything in that conference? And yet we say the same thing time and time again, no matter how many conferences and no matter how many talks and no matter how many written articles about our Prophet ﷺ, time and time again, it does him no justice. It does not depict the type of person that he was. And every author and every scholar can testify to this, that it does not do his life any justice whatsoever, and it actually falls short of really depicting what type of person he is. During his lifetime, come on in. During his lifetime, he experienced strength and he experienced weakness. He experienced wealth and he experienced poverty. He experienced bounty and deficiency. He experienced victory and he experienced defeat, being uprooted and being settled. Throughout all of the things that the Prophet has experienced, it gives you an example in your own life. You think about the cause in Palestine, where their homes are being demolished. And yet then you think of the Prophet ﷺ. He was born in what city? Say it, it's okay. Mecca. And the most holiest land that he ever loved and lived in. And he was actually kicked out of his home. So now the Palestinians, if they remember that and they reflect on that hey, I lost my home, but the Prophet lost his too. And he was kicked out. He was abolished from it. And as he was actually leaving Mecca, he turned around and talked to Mecca as if it was an individual, as if he was leaving a person. And he said, I would not have left you if they'd never kicked me out from you. And he went to where? He went to Medina. So he stayed in Mecca for 13 years with only a few people believing in him. That was his main dedication, his main mission. Imagine you were tasked with a mission to go out and proclaim the oneness of God. Even put it in this context of the university that you're in. That you were to go to your classmates and to your friends, preaching to them as if you were really interested in their salvation of worshiping one God. And time again, they rejected you, they mocked you, they said this guy's crazy, watch out for this guy. Every time he comes by, he always talks about the same thing. Yet the Prophet never was pessimistic throughout all of his ordeals. He was never hopeless, he was never angry. When his companions actually came to him and complained to him about their own situation, and they were asking him, pray to Allah that He brings us success. The Prophet ﷺ, he turned to him and he said, you guys are just being a little bit too hasty. You're rushing matters. Calm down. He was trying to really tell them to calm down. He actually told this to a man, his name was Khabbab ibn al-Arat. And Khabbab was not just your ordinary person. You guys know the story of Bilal, where he was tortured. He wasn't the only companion that got tortured. Khabbab was one of them. And he was kidnapped when he was a young boy. He was sold into slavery. When he used to get tortured and punished, they would lay him down on the ground. They would take these hot charcoals and they would push it into his back, so much so until he could start smelling his own skin burn away. Khabbab, the same person, when he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, make dua for us so that we can get success. And the Prophet said, calm down, you're rushing things. And then we think of Syria. It's been 7 years and counting. How many bodies have been lost? How many families have been destroyed? How many people have been killed? From those we know that are counted, but there are so many that are lost, and unfortunately they run on CNN just like a ticker, few hundred here, few thousand there, and it's almost, unfortunately, that's all people get out of it, is just a number. But the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, they went through that as well. They went through it so much so that they even felt at times that the mercy of Allah or the success or victory was just not going to come. But the Prophet ﷺ, he promised them to take it easy, and he said victory will come. When he got kicked out of Mecca, and we'll touch upon this maybe in the second segment. Remember when I said he left Mecca, he got kicked out? The time he came back with 10,000 strong. And as he was going into Mecca, you would think of like any, your typical ruler or king, like the movie. In a movie, they would put it part 2, the revenge. He comes in, and it's his time, to, like God of War style, where he's just going to go in and just kill everything and anybody in his way, okay? He knew as he was walking in, he said, everyone here is forgiven. If you're at such and such a place and such a place, you're forgiven. If you face us, we'll attack and defend ourselves as we should. But the Prophet ﷺ, 10,000 strong, when he could exact revenge on these people, he said no. It wasn't befitting for him. And yet we hear about ISIS, and we hear about terrorists here and terrorists there. It really has no context. Maybe it's political, maybe it's driven by something else. But when you actually take these people back to read about Islam and to study the Prophet, it's completely different. It's black and white. This is why after 9/11, when that terrible incident happened with the Twin Towers, people had no idea about Islam and Muslims, so they went to go read books. They studied it. Wa alaikum salam. And they realized that this is such a beautiful religion that many of them actually embraced Islam. And purchases of the noble Quran, it was at an all-time high because people wanted to know, why do these people hate us? So when they read the books, they realized that there's no hate here, that these are just people, and you know how the media works, and that's a whole different topic for another time. But it's unfortunate because us here, we have a lot of homework to do. And I know a lot of people are allergic to that word homework, especially in a university format. But at the same time, as an individual, the onus is on you to educate, to emulate the Prophet's life, to teach people what it's actually like to have that little bit of mercy that the Prophet ﷺ had in his life. Delegations came to the Prophet ﷺ from every corner of Arabia, pledging their allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ. And they even pledged their obedience to him. This did not change him in any way. He did not feel boastful or prideful or arrogant, as you would imagine some people nowadays, they become a king, they become a president, they become the leader. Now it starts to tickle their heart in a funny way, and they're walking with their shoulders broadened and their head held up high, and they feel like, they're the king of kings, nobody's going to touch them. The Prophet ﷺ actually, when he was sitting in a gathering and people came to visit him for the very first time, they asked, who amongst you is Prophet Muhammad? Who is Rasulullah? What does that tell you? Like right now, if somebody came in and we're just dead silent and nobody was talking, and somebody came in, they would know who the speaker is, right? I got a fancy little chair that, it's on a swivel, has wheels. People would come in, they know that, okay, this guy must be the speaker, this is the audience. When they came in to see the Prophet, he wasn't sitting on a fancy, ruby-filled throne that's, higher than, he needs help to just climb onto it. He was sitting, just amongst the brothers, amongst the companions in the back, no fancy chair, no dignified throne, nothing to distinguish even people just walking in to say, oh, that must be him. They couldn't even gather that information right when they walked in. What does that tell you about an individual? How could such people die for such a man? Because there was something different about him than you would experience from the other kings. And nowadays, you put something on Twitter about kings, in certain countries, you're going to jail. You'll be in prison. You'll be shackled. You'll be tortured. And the list goes on. Once again, a topic for another day. So they would ask, who amongst you is Muhammad? And that, subhanAllah, to me meant so much when you read about his life. Like, it's amazing. If any one of us was a king, the first thing we would order is that big chair. I'm it. Sufyan ibn al-Harith, he testified to this when he said about him, and this is like a poem that's been translated into English to such an extent. He said, "Upon your life, on the day that I carried the standard so that the army of Allat could overcome the army of Muhammad, like an uncertain person who sets out at night, this was the time that I was offered guidance and seen the light. I was guided by someone other than my way. I was guided to Allah by the very one I had striven so hard to drive away. No camel has there ever been who has ever bore upon its back anyone more righteous or more faithful than Muhammad, even when under attack." Companions used to compete, and they used to write the most beautiful illustrated poetry about their Prophet ﷺ. And it still happens today, and there's poetry contests that exist and competitions. One time a man of Thumama ibn Athal, he was a leader of Bani Hanifa, and he was brought to Medina as a prisoner. Okay? The thing that's about Thumama is that he had killed so many companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So he was imprisoned in the masjid, and he was held there. So the Prophet ﷺ, he visited him 3 days, and each time he visited him, he asked him, "What do you think, O Thumama?" So the Thumama looked at the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "What I think, O Muhammad, is good. If you kill me, you'll kill somebody who deserves to be killed, because I have killed so many of your companions and Muslims. And if you release me, then I'll be totally grateful. And if you want money, then we can arrange that, and all you have to do is ask, and I will give you whatever it is that you want." So the Prophet left him for 3 days, and each day he would come back and ask him similar questions. And Thumama would give similar answers. "Kill me? I don't blame you for doing that, because I've killed so many of your companions, I've lost count." So after the 3rd day, what do you think the Prophet did? Take a wild guess. Took him? No, probably not. What do you think he did? Released him. And you probably think, well, how could he release him in today's time when he's killed so many people? And you think, what, well, he's a prophet, so I get it, right? There's other people who have done that. I mean, videos have been posted of, I forget the story, but one, I believe, Indonesian or Malaysian man who forgave the killer of his own son. So this man had killed his own son, and in the court, they actually embraced and hugged. I mean, I can't forgive somebody if they stole $20 from me. It's like, I feel so violated. Somebody went into my wallet and took my money. I feel like, no, I cannot forgive you. I cannot forgive you if I heard that you were speaking behind my back, and I know you were. And we'll talk after this lecture, okay? So a lot of us feel that way. We're so prideful. We're so in one way or another stubborn, stuck up. That the Prophet forgave murderers, yet you cannot forgive somebody who spoke ill of you at one day. And you know what's the best thing to do when you know about somebody speaking bad about you? The companions and the Salaf, they used to do this. They used to go and congratulate. They used to thank the person. "Thank you for talking bad about me, because on the day of judgment, you're actually going to give me your good deeds." There is no precious gift other than getting somebody's good deeds on a day you're going to need it. I mean, this is a day where they say the baby's hair would turn gray, would turn white. It's Yawm Azim. It's a very scary and terrifying day. Back to Thumama. So after he was let go and released, Thumama, he went to stand by a date palm tree, and he stood near a masjid and he took a full ghusl, a bath, and he came to the Prophet and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So he embraced Islam. Then he said, O Muhammad, there was no one on earth whose face was more hateful to me than your face, but now your face is the most beloved of all faces to me. He said, by Allah, there was no religion that was more hateful to me than your religion, but now your religion is the most beloved of all religions to me. He said, by Allah, there was no land that I hated more than your land, but now your land is the most beloved land to me. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ treated his enemies. And this is what led them to embrace Islam. If this is how he treated his enemies, what was it like to ever be his close friend? Like, I just don't know. This is the treatment. We don't even treat our friends the way the Prophet treated his enemies, right? One time a man came into the Prophet's house and he gave salam and he was very rude. He ended up leaving. And I got it. Umar, is that my 30-minute clock? I got it. I was like, wow. 30 minutes. Okay. This is your halftime break, so we're going to have to revamp and focus here. One time, a man came in, and Aisha was with him. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. And as the man came in and left, Aisha was upset. How could you treat this guy who you know hates you, yet you treated him so kindly? Like, this was sometimes a problem for many people, And as sometimes it becomes a very struggle, when you have a friend and you're a friend of another friend, but the friend of your friend who is an enemy to you, quote unquote, it bothers you inside, right? He dispelled hatred with generosity. He reconciled people's hearts in ways that you would not imagine. He restored their unity. He was trusted even among the disbelieving nations, the disbelievers, until he spoke about Islam, and then they started to shun him out. And what bothered them even more is that they knew that he was not in it for personal gain or any personal accolades or achievements. Even if some of their soldiers may have aspired such aspirations, they were amazed at his leniency and at how he avoided difficulties in all of his affairs. They were amazed at how he maintained his composure, his good nature, his balanced perspective on things. For us, our character depends upon our circumstance. What do I mean by that? Is that if times are good, I expect you're usually typically a good person, right? If I ask you, how's your day going? You're going to treat me according to how your day went, right? I can read it on your face. I can see it in your body language, in your emotions. And so our character is typically dependent upon, it's a variable that's dependent upon our circumstance. Where the Prophet ﷺ, his character was a constant, although his circumstances were the variables. Whether it was a good time, or whether he was having trouble, he still was the most generous and merciful person. If he had money, if he did not have money, he still was generous. One time a Bedouin came and he grabbed him by his cloak, left a mark here, and he said, "Oh Muhammad, give me from what you have." So the Prophet ﷺ went into his home, took out his new garments, gave it to him. And his garment was an old one. There were times where he was requested to give him, to lend wealth, give out wealth. So he told the Bedouin man, he said, "You see what is between the two valleys?" And it was just a herd of sheep, a huge flock. He said, "All of it is for you." He wasn't the type that, if I'm going to give, and we're all guilty of this, I'm going to give based upon what I have, right? If I have $100, I'll give maybe 10, 20 if I'm having a good day or feeling really good. The Prophet ﷺ, he would give without counting. He would give without calculating, like we do. Another thing in chapter 79, Surah Nazi'at, or Abasa actually, chapter 80, One time the Prophet ﷺ, he turned away from a blind man. Basically, he did not give him his full undivided attention. Because of that, Allah revealed verses. So what does that mean? Like, if I talk to a person and I'm shaking a guy's hand, I'm not giving him eye contact, he means nothing to me. You know, that body language sends a message, right? I don't even value you enough to give you eye contact when I'm shaking your hand. Something that we should all actually practice. When you do give somebody shake somebody's hand, give them eye contact. Sometimes we just shake hands without even knowing who we shook hands with. So the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would give his full attention to anyone who shared his company. He would turn his shoulders to the individual as he's talking to the person. No sidebar conversations like this where another person might feel disrespected or whatnot. He would address each group in their own dialect. And he would speak to them at their own level. What does that mean? You know, sometimes when we have become so educated, we feel like, you know, or sometimes like at work, your boss may want to talk to you at such a high technical level. Some people do it on purpose just to make you feel dumb, just to make you feel like you don't get it, you know? You guys know what I'm talking about? School, classes, teachers, yeah? So the Prophet ﷺ, he knew what educational level people were at, and therefore he was able to adjust his type of speech in accordance with the people that he was talking with. He wouldn't be so sophisticated and, you know, to the Bedouin person, to the desert dweller, and talk at a high advanced language. No, he would make things simple for the simple-minded person. But when it came to talking to people who are advanced, he could also, you know, raise it up a notch. So he would show utmost courtesy, concern, and mercy unless they came forward fighting and brandishing their weapons in the face of truth and hoping to distinguish. Any kind of food was good for them, even Domino's pizza. Okay? Even to the extent, Domino's, yeah, there we go. Any kind of lawful food was good enough for him. When he didn't like something, he had a way about it in terms of rejecting it. One time, Khalid ibn Walid, he gave him something that was called, not to gross you guys out, but it was a type of desert animal. They call it a dab. A dab, or if you search it like D-A-B-B, something like that in Google, it'll come out as like a lizard. Okay, they used to eat this in the desert. Why? Because there wasn't much things going around. I know it's not the most appetizing, but that's what he used to eat, or that's what they used to eat. Okay, the Meccans and the people living in the desert. So one time he was served that food, and Khalid ibn Walid gave it to him. And the Prophet ﷺ reached for it and asked him, "What is it?" So Khalid told him, "It is a dab, a lizard," and he knew what it was. So the Prophet ﷺ said, he didn't say anything, he just put his hand down. So Khalid got kind of concerned. It's like, oh, is it haram? So the Prophet said, no, it's not haram, just I don't like it. It's not my liking. Sometimes when we don't like something, boy, we make it known. One time I was at a gathering. You guys like tea? Yeah? You guys ever had Yemeni tea? Yes? Okay. What do they use in it? Cardamom, yes. So, in the Pakistani chai, I guess you would call it, do they use cardamom? Yes. They do? Okay. The Yemeni tea, if you try both, I don't want to say Yemeni tea is a bit bitter, but it has that type of stronger taste. Okay. Although it is the best tea. That's a whole different debate. Hey now, okay. Okay, I'm being biased. One time I was in a gathering and somebody was served that type of Yemeni chai, and as he tried it, oh boy, he didn't like it. He put it down. He got up. He spit it out, and everybody was just like confused. Like, was it hot? I don't know. But you think about the way the Prophet ﷺ dealt with things, completely different, right? Any person who approached him, they were worthy of his company. So there wasn't somebody like, if somebody had holes in their clothing, had a bad smell, was poor, the Prophet ﷺ would love actually to enjoy a meal with such people, or with that type of group. He didn't feel like you had to be at the same status as him. And even to us, sometimes if you haven't felt that way, the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged people to pat the head of the orphan. Feel what they feel. They have no parents. Go to that level of theirs, to actually sit with them. With the poor people, the Prophet ﷺ always break bread with them, always had a meal with them. Something that, you know what, it's easy to buy a fast food meal and just, here you go, buddy, this is for you. Oh, thanks, Try actually doing more than that, How could you make them feel like it's just not like a few dollars that you're giving them, like, hope I take away your hunger. One time, here's another story, this was interesting. You guys remember Hometown Buffet? Yeah. So one time I was with a friend of mine, and we went in, and there was, a man and a lady with him outside, right? So what my friend did, give him credit for this, he went in and he bought them 2 tickets to Hometown Buffet. Allahu Akbar, this is like Jannah, right? Eat all you want, there's no time limit, so even wait around for the next meal, have a good time. So they went in, and as we're pulling away and we're going out, they came out and started counting the cash. I was like, what do you think they did? I never knew they could do this, but they actually returned the ticket or the receipt and got cash for it. Anyway, just found that kind of shocking. The Prophet ﷺ, even, and sometimes that deters us from giving, right? Like, you know what, I'm going to give it to him. What are they going to do with it? Do this. Technically speaking, it doesn't really matter what they do with it as long as your intention is correct. Sometimes shaitan will come and try to deter you from giving because your mind is working, well, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to do this, that? Of course, if you know they're going to be engaged in something haram, drugs or whatnot, that's a different story. The Prophet ﷺ, he lived his life that he knew whatever he received in his life, it was meant to be. It would never be missed. And whatever he missed in his life, it was never meant for him to receive. Like that feeling when you break your phone or your phone gets lost and you think of, oh my God, all the pictures, all the text messages, everything else. You're not even thinking about the price tag unless it's brand new and you messed it up. But you're thinking about the content that's within the phone. Well, hey, it was meant to be. Live with it. Sometimes it's actually good to go through that, unintentional, but when that happens to you, that kind of brings things back to home that one of these days, your cell phone is going to be the least of your worries and concerns. He never criticized the humblest of foods or avoided anything because of its good quality. He always accepted gifts, whether it was food, he ate drinks, furniture, clothing. He used to love things of good quality, but did not find difficulty when such things were unavailable. We have become so accustomed. You can have a seat. Come on, let's welcome her. There you go. The fact that you're sitting now, it's harder to leave, see? In our lives, we've become so accustomed to luxuries that if it was taken away from us, then it becomes such a tough battle to how do we adjust, Like in the University of Medina, a lot of the students who go there, to study and, it's like your Stanford, your Harvard, the Islamic pinnacle of Islamic studies there. A lot of students, when they go there, they're like, I can't do it. They come back. Why? Because they're not accustomed to, you got to drink bottled water, nothing from the faucet, brushing your teeth. If you go to Hajj or Mecca, just as a hint, be careful of the water that you use because a lot of the water is just, we're not used to it. Brushing your teeth with that water is enough to trigger some unhappy times. One thing that's also amazing is that the Prophet's life is an open book. Imagine living your life with people following you everywhere you go, writing every single detail about the way you chewed food, about the way you drank, about the way you slept, about the way you did so many of the things that you do. His life was detailed from the time he woke up to the time he slept. And if it was so detailed, and yet we find in it just a lot of beautiful examples of how to live your life, that becomes a miracle in and of itself. We know everything about They used to count the gray hairs on his head. To such an extent that when he used to sweat, they used to describe how he sweated and how it, glittered, and how that mirror effect with the moon. They used to describe his face and his body shape and his height and his hair and his beard. The details around the way the Prophet was and what he looked like, it was to such pristine detail. Imagine in your own life, people following you. Technically speaking, like a camera, you just, the way you're chewing, the way you're sitting. The Prophet ﷺ, when he used to eat, he was not eating like this. This is how kings eat, give me this and give me that. And he would go into his food and then eat like a humble person. So much detail covered about his life, which, and this is why when I opened up the lecture about our mothers, Aisha, Khadija, they have given us the way the Prophet was inside the home. So the Prophet wasn't just like some, example outside of the home, right? You have a lot of people, mashallah, they put on such a great, they become such great people when they're outside. But when they're inside, we don't know how they are, right? They become their own little monster running around here and there. But the Prophet ﷺ, we have the information about the Prophet's life, even how he was inside the home. A person who reads his biography today, he'll know more details about the Prophet than his own friend. Wouldn't you think that's true? Yeah? If you ever read the Seerah, which is the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, you'll find so much more details in it than your own friends, people that you hang out with all the time. The Jews and the Christians knew about their own prophets when they were alive. And when they knew about the Prophet ﷺ, they even testified, this is the Prophet. He is a prophet. When he came from Mecca to Medina, there were some Jews who were waiting just to see the Prophet ﷺ. And when you also think of the Prophet ﷺ, he was balanced in nature. Okay, some companions, they fell into hardship, and he consoled them with beautiful words. And he said, "I am more humble before Allah than any of you. I fear Allah more than any of you. I have more knowledge than any of you, for I know Allah better than anyone else." He also said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, the religion is easy. No one becomes harsh and strict in their religion without it overwhelming them. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to keep things balanced, right? That a lot of people, when they go into, like they become religious, they get, I'm going to change my whole life around. And it becomes such only like a phase in their life, because they've, changed their life 180 degrees, which is great. But you have to take that in gradual steps. Iman has to be accompanied by knowledge. That's why you see when people just became Muslim and they embraced Islam, what's higher? It's their Iman, right? Their knowledge, all they know is ash-shahada, right? One God. As they're living their life, Iman goes up and down, and their knowledge is supposed to start increasing. That way, when their Iman goes low, their knowledge of what is halal and what is haram is going to pick them up, is going to still guide them out. So that's where we need the balance of both. You need the knowledge and you need the faith to cultivate that Iman. I want to leave some time for questions or for open discussion. Let me give you guys maybe I have this poem here that I like poems since we're talking about poems. And then I'll open it up, inshallah. Allah, our Creator, our All-Knower, the All-Wise, Master is He of the earth and paradise. No partner, no family, no kith or kin. He is the Creator of mankind and jinn. Muhammad, the final messenger, stood strong in the face of danger. The word of Allah he did proclaim, a man of courage, honor, and fame. When Jibreel descended, the Quran was revealed. Muhammad was shaken, his lips were sealed. Slowly he knew why the Quran was sent, the truth in it and what it meant. He invited the people far and near to embrace Islam without any fear. He was mocked by the people and called a liar. Little did they know their abode was the fire. Muhammad went on, you can never see him cease. His generosity was described as an everlasting breeze. He fought many battles, took no defeat. The enemies of Islam were forced to retreat. The word of Allah spread far and wide. Muslims took the Quran as a sign and a guide. Islam is our wealth. The Quran is our treasure. Our love for Allah and His Prophet, no one can measure. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma ameen wa jazakum Allahu khair. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Or are you guys just really hungry right now? Totally understand. We have about 10 minutes.
It's okay if you guys go over, like, I'll be closing today, so you guys can go over.
Okay. To some extent, yeah.
So one of the stories you mentioned of back when the enemy of the Prophet was captured and kept for 3 days, would you kind of want to go into where he was kept and how that kind of led towards his shahada in the end? Or?
So, the way you could imagine that the fact that a lot of things cultivated the reason why he became a Muslim, right? Why he accepted Islam. It wasn't just because he was released, because if he stayed there for 3 days and he was tortured or mocked or, hey, haha, we got you now, good luck. None of that was done, It's almost like, when we were kids and somebody slaps us in the back of the head, what do? We're going to chase him down. And yeah, he's probably quicker, so we can't get to him. But the second we got to him and we captured him, boy, is he going to get it. So that mindset was something that the Prophet ﷺ was far removed from. He captured his enemies, or when they were captured, he still dealt with them at a level where, today you don't see it, Even, the Prophet ﷺ did have battles. They did fight. A lot of it was defensive. And when it was defensive, there was even rules of war engagement. So you couldn't just kill somebody who was old or inactive, not fighting, or a child or women. Today, there is no rules, right? A bomb drops, collateral damage, so-and-so, this many people died, moving on to the next bomb that's going to drop at the next location. The Prophet ﷺ, like I said, in every facet of life, he showed us how to have that pinnacle of example, and that's how the Prophet ﷺ was. He was actually the person. So Thumama was actually he was held in the masjid. So a masjid is a holy place, right? It's not some kind of cave or dungeon. So throughout that time, he was given good treatment. He was fed. He was taken care of in a sense. And at the third day, when the Prophet ﷺ said, "You're released," this man realized, the way he just treated me, this is unheard of. Does that happen today? Of course. It's been happening throughout time now, as Muslims who are engaged and fighting. You hear those kind of stories of how they're trying to live up to that example. But yeah, we're not going to capture a prisoner of war, right? But to some extent, when somebody slaps you behind your head and you do catch them and you realize that, hey, I got you now, you kind of overlook it, or show them the mercy in your heart to overlook the damage that they have caused. Regardless of what they have said, regardless of what they have did, there's so many different examples that we can take in our own life to emulate and imitate in terms of how the Prophet ﷺ was. What else? Yes.
Were there any stories of the Prophet sort of uplifting a person who didn't feel like they belonged in the Muslim community, or they felt inadequate as a person?
Yeah, two stories come to mind. One time, and I believe it was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he was climbing a tree, okay? And as he was climbing a tree, his garment had raised up, and they saw the thinness of his legs, okay? So you have two legs, and they saw how thin his leg was. So some of the companions looked and kind of laughed, look how thin his legs are. So the Prophet ﷺ got upset, and he said, although they may be thin now, when he is on the scale, himself, on the scale on the day of judgment, on the good deeds, it will be heavier than the mountain of Uhud. So you're laughing now at that, but this man is actually, he weighs heavier than in good deeds than Mount Uhud. Okay? This is one way to keep people their morale a bit higher. There's another story that came to mind.
Would you say the Abyssinian lady that's the masjid keeper, would you say that relates to that?
That's another one, yeah. The one who you're referring to, the one who used to clean the masjid, and then one day she was no longer there, and the companions said they told that when the Prophet asked about her, which is amazing, right? She's just a cleaner of the masjid. Prophet asked about her, and they said that she had died, and they buried her, and he was upset. Why didn't anybody tell me? The companions are thinking, like, we don't want to waste your time with that. She's just a cleaner. Prophet ﷺ had a different view of what type of person she was. There was another man, the Prophet ﷺ, actually a person who was actually a drunkard. He used to drink alcohol. And he would come to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, I drank alcohol." The Prophet ﷺ would have him, get punished. He testified against himself. The punishment would be exacted. He would get lashed for doing that. When you think of lashing, this is not the gladiator style of lashing with those big, long, 10-yard, whips and, whoosh, none of that. The lashing, as I heard one sheikh describe it, is the elbow is attached at the hip, at the waistline, and this is the lashing. So what does this tell you? Is it going to hurt? Not so much so. It's more of a humiliation, right? This person did something bad, and as a community or as a punishment, we're going to punish him, but the punishment is more of a, it's the punishment's actually serving the community. It's telling them that, hey, if you do such a thing as well, this is the kind of humiliation you're going to go through. So, one, it's a sign for this person not to do it again, but it's also a sign for everybody else. Hey, don't drink. Not worth it. So this man who used to drink, he used to come to the Prophet 3 times. And each time he came, the companion said, "May Allah curse you. How many times are you going to come to the Prophet and testify against yourself that you have drunk, you're drinking?" So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't curse him, because I know that he loves Allah and His Messenger." Allahu Akbar. This is a guy who's drinking khamr, which is a major sin. Yet the Prophet ﷺ still had hope in this person because he felt bad, he regretted what he did, and so he ran to the Prophet ﷺ, said, "I did this again." So the Prophet punished him the way that was in accordance. And although that happened, the same person the Prophet ﷺ had hope for. Even the same person he would take the Prophet by the hand and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, I want to buy you something." So he got like this nice jar of honey for the Prophet ﷺ. It was given to him, and then the merchant was looking at the guy's name was Abdullah, the drunkard, and with the Prophet. So as he was buying him the gift, quote unquote, buying him the gift, he gave him the honey and the sweets, and then he told the Prophet, "If you don't mind, can you pay him?" The funny thing is that if you're buying somebody a gift, technically speaking, you're the one who pays for it. But if I take you and I buy you a gift and we go to Macy's, I say, "I got you a nice bottle of cologne. Do you like it?" You say, "Oh, I love it. Thank you so much." I was like, "Yeah, if you don't mind, pay Macy's $70 for that bottle." You're like, "That's interesting. Although I may love you so much, I just can't afford it." And that's how this relationship of Abdullah was towards the Prophet ﷺ. He had that love, he just didn't have the money for it or to back it up. It's a good tactic if you like to do it, Yes. What else? Yes.
Yeah, I was taking 2 examples together and trying to ask them about how to apply it together in modern life. And so the first one was about the Prophet ﷺ not counting when giving money.
Yeah.
And also he would talk to and eat with poor people. And I was wondering how you would say kind of like applying this to our everyday life, and like if we're in San Francisco or some other place, how to apply this etiquette. And also like when like giving money, is it fine to like calculate it all out and do all of that stuff?
Yeah, of course, we look at what's the saying? You aim for the moon, land among the stars. The Prophet has set the bar. When he gives, he's generous, right? His generosity used to be even doubled or even more during Ramadan. But for us, of course, you got to take care of yourself as well. The Prophet ﷺ did not like for his ummah to be poor in a sense, right? The upper hand is better than the bottom, right? The one who's giving is better than the one who is receiving in that sense. So to some extent, yeah, I'm not saying, take out your cash or just give the guy the wallet, Like I just heard a lecture and he told me to empty out my bank account. No, of course not. You give to your means that you can. Something is better than nothing. But at the same time, if you had 100 and you gave 10, it's not going to break you. If you gave 20, it's not going to break you. If you gave 50, it's going to test you. And when you reach that number of, wow, that was a lot, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that you give from that which you love. And sometimes giving $1 or $5, you don't really feel it. It's just $1 or $2, $3, $4, $5. But when you give sometimes a large sum of money, you kind of feel it and you start walking away like, wow, I just did that. What did I just do? But then you tell yourself, you know what? That's how you earn reward, right? When you go to Hajj and there is no lesser reward for Hajj than Jannah, well, that's because Hajj is a tough journey. Anybody did Hajj before? Did I see a hand? Inshallah. Well, soon, inshallah. But when you do Hajj, it's not easy, and because it's not easy, you can kind of actually see the reward. Who's trying to be a doctor in here? May Allah give you guys success. Not easy, right? Not easy. But then again, there's something that's motivating you, and the thing that's motivating you is kind of driving you to continue on, to make sure you pass, to make sure you get through it. So that end goal is what's pushing you to go through through this whole journey of studying for 55 years or whatever it feels like. Sometimes just non-ending, So that's just that extent. Now, in terms of, guesting or sitting with a poor person, San Francisco. I mean, I remember I was sitting outside and, they'll have the little tables where you're sitting outside and you'll see them walking back and forth. To a certain extent, you would invite somebody like that, like, is it safe for your own self? You know what I mean? There's some people who, you don't even know they're poor. But at the same time, it's use your own judgment. Safety's, the first priority. But having that experience whenever you can do it may prove to be fruitful. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, if you're with a group of brothers and somebody was coming and you gave them pizza, a slice or two, that would be great. One time I tried to do that, and this is actually like a kind of sad story, but somebody was coming by and I offered them pizza and they said, no, I'm not taking that. I was like, wow, this guy's rude. He must not be hungry. And then I kept on, I felt like, what did I do? Maybe he doesn't like Costco pizza. Costco? Yeah, that's really good. So he actually told me, he said the last time he took a pizza slice from somebody, he found hair in it. I was like, okay. Now that kind of puts context into it. So I don't know if he just wanted money, but at the same time, it's just kind of like that was pretty sad. But yeah, you judge your own situations and you try to do the best to your ability without putting yourself in any difficult situation or circumstance. What else? Sisters, yes. I understand.
I just is like a reflection, not so much of a question.
Sure.
But, I was when you were talking about like how he forgave so willingly and he never failed to hesitate before he forgave. It really made me think about like the generation that we live in and like the society that we live in. It's like a very independent, individualistic society where people are commonly like, oh well, this person's fake, they did me wrong, I'm not gonna forgive them, whatever, don't wanna listen to them, I'm not gonna let you apologize, I'm gonna ignore you, I'm gonna block you. And even if they do, they choose to draw it out to make the person feel bad and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just it really reminds me of like the common saying of like give someone like 70 pieces and be merciful with them. Because when something like that happens to you and you wrong someone by accident, all you really want is for them to hear you out and for
It does. And actually, when you forgive, you actually feel better than the person you're forgiving. Don't forgive for their sake, forgive for your own. Because when you hold that bitterness and that anxiety, that enmity inside, you're the only one suffering. That person's living his day, and maybe not, he or she may not be thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. But so muster all that negative energy into forgiveness. Because once you do that, you felt like, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. But, we have egos, unfortunately. Seems like the older we get, the bigger our ego becomes. Parents, aunts, uncles, they can't forgive for anything. I'm not talking to that person. Why not? You know what he said to me 10, 15 years ago? It's like 10, 15 years ago? And you're still contemplating and thinking about that? And it's like, what are you going to do when that person has a janazah and is being buried? You're not going to visit them? You're not going to pray on them? Are they kafir? They've left the fold of Islam? I mean, if you cannot learn to forgive somebody, why should Allah forgive you? Point and simple. You've done so much grievances against Allah than that person did against you. So if you want Allah to forgive you, then learn to forgive others. And sometimes, and this is the actual example, is that if you met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He brings all these people who have wronged you, and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna extract as many good deeds as I can. In my heart, I tell myself, I try to clean my heart as much as I can. I forgive everybody who has wronged me to whatever degree today and forever, inshallah. I don't want to die until I have forgiven everybody. And I think, who is there that I don't like, I hate? I can't think of anybody, to be honest with you. That's because I try to, flush that negative emotions in my heart for any people that are out there. Because when I do that, I just want Allah to say, you know what, since you've forgiven everybody, your forgiveness is not greater than mine. I want Allah to say that I can forgive you just like you forgave everybody else. And it will be like a carbon copy in the sense that your forgiveness will correlate to Allah forgiving you as well. If you think you're going to get your ticket into Jannah by, I'm not going to forgive him, I'm going to go on the day of judgment, and I'm going to get every single good deed from you. Well, then you're playing it by the book, right? You're really hoping that your deeds outweigh your bad deeds. I don't know where I stand with my good deeds and my balance, but what I'm hoping for is that regardless of the fact that Allah will just say, you know what, that doesn't even matter. We don't even have to go through the weighing. By the way, the guy, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, I just forgot to mention remember I said his legs were very thin? Going back to that, I don't know if I finished it, but on the scale, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will actually, on the mizan, will weigh your good deeds. Your good deeds are numbers right now, right? They're whatever it is, checkbox or, ticks. Those will correlate into objects where you can actually weigh them. And you yourself will be weighed. So, eat as much as you can. No, I'm just kidding. No. So, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, because he was so close to the Quran, this is why the Prophet ﷺ said that when he is on the mizan, he'll weigh more than Uhud itself. That's because he was somebody close to the Quran. So, us can also be weighed. Your shahada, the fact that you believe in Allah, the one true God, is what's going to help you too. And inshallah, when you become weighed on that day. What else? Yes.
I was wondering about the sunnahs of traveling. I heard something where the Prophet ﷺ, he traveled in like threes, or it was recommended. I don't know if you could. Is that something
I think I can recall something like that, but if there's any benefit to it, it would make sense, even for the sisters. When you travel here, always go in groups, right? Makes sense. A person who's by themselves is more in danger. But I can look up that inshallah just to double check what is the question though? Is it
what was the justification?
Oh.
As to protect from shaitan, was it?
Possibly, yeah. From not just from shaitan, but just from outside elements. There was highway robbers that existed during that time. But yeah, that would be the sin. He also, one of the sunnah of travels is that he would also elect a leader, to, somebody who knows the path, who knows the road, that would be the amir. I don't know if you would do something like that in terms of long travels. Rather, if you're just going to your parking lot or to the car, then Umar, he's my leader. So wherever he tells me to go, I go. Yeah. What else? You guys are really shy, mashallah. We're looking good? Yes.
Sorry,
No problem.
I'm late, but in basic terms, can you try to describe Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like to your non-Muslim friends?
So if you go back to the video that's being recorded,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. Where to start? Depends on how are they having, how's that discussion coming? Because it depends on the context, I would say. If they were challenging you that the Prophet was a warmonger, well, no, he wasn't. They'll throw these words out there, and I'm not sure if that's the context that you're referring to, but ask them, can you give me an example? Where's your reference? Where's your sources? A lot of the times, Fox and media and news, they would be shy to say that, and so they would just stumble. If you had a question about chemistry, you ask a chemist. If you have questions about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you ask a Muslim, or somebody who studied about Islam, or somebody who knows about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what I would actually recommend too is, sometimes in your masajid, if you go to your mosque, they'll have these small pamphlets that are very concise, and they dispel against a lot of the notions like the Prophet was this, the Prophet was that, Islam spread by the sword, all of that stuff. They usually have that, but that's more for like argumentative debates and stuff like that. But I would just go from the way I so I work in a corporate office, right? So I don't go and I just preach to everybody, hey, have you heard about Islam? It's not befitting for the workplace. But when the discussion comes up and they have questions, I definitely take the opportunity to answer. Sometimes I'll be praying in a conference room by myself, and the cleaners, will come in, and they see me just standing. And after I'm done, obviously I explain what I'm doing, because they saw me doing, standing, bowing, whatever it is. So I take opportunities when they arise, especially in the workplace, which is very sensitive, talk about religion, politics, and all that stuff. So just look for the opportunity, I would say, when those discussions come up. And depending on how those discussions come up, when they're more organic, when they're more natural, they really resonate with the heart. They really go a longer way when rather than it's being force-fed. And of course, you could throw out the bait to try to engage them. If they're such a good person, they're very honest, they're very loyal, truthful, they don't say bad words and all that stuff, and you just say, man, this person, if he was just a Muslim, what a perfect perfect example he would have been. Actually, when's our next lecture?
In 2 weeks from
Maybe 2 weeks here. We'll give a talk. The next topic is actually more about forgiveness. What the Prophet ﷺ went through, the struggles he had, the things he faced, and how time and time again he forgave and forgave and forgave. And I'll be honest with you, is there anybody in here who has somebody they're not talking to? I won't look. Anybody? Yeah? Who? No. But if there is somebody, would you find it, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I don't know if you're being honest, yeah? Yeah? How receptive are you to forgiving the person?
After today, I'm going to have to be pretty receptive.
Very good, mashallah. That is good. No, that is good. And he's smiling when he's saying that. He's not disgruntled and upset and why do I have to do this? No, you should take that and be happy about it. You made my day, bro. Jazakallah khair. Yes.
What if you ask for forgiveness from somebody and they refuse to forgive you?
That's in a sense that's fine because you've done your job, you've done your part. Make your approach as sincere as possible. Don't do it like it's a homework assignment and you don't care about the results. Here, I'm failing anyway. Do it as sincere as you can. You know, if they and it has happened actually. I shouldn't say it, but it happened here in Davis Masjid. Okay, I was giving Eid khutbah. Did I tell you the story before? I probably did. I did? Yeah. And those two people well, for those who didn't hear, as I came down the minbar and one person came to me and said, hey, that person and that person are not talking. Can you have them reconcile? I said, oh, yeah, easy money. It's Eid. I mean, when they went, it was like magnetic fields that were the same and they just opposites, they went, just north and south. They did not. I was like, I guess somebody got killed. No, I don't know. It's sad because when we act like that and we're not together and united, why do we complain that we're so divided? Try your best. That's all you can. Make dua too. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala softens that person's heart when you approach them. Make dua that Allah makes it easy for you to approach them and talk to them and take them by the arm or whatever it is. Say, hey, look, you may not even be the one who is at fault, but I like to even apologize. Hey, I'm sorry about what has happened. I'm sorry about the misunderstanding. It's like it's very silly of me to have done this or that, and you may have said that because of what they said initially. Who cares though? You're not in a courthouse where you're like, he said this first and then I said that. That's like, I deal with that with my kids, and that's like, but he said that first. It's like, it doesn't matter, be the better person. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy. Yeah.
It's about forgiveness. It's not my story, but it's someone else's story, and I
For
don't
sure.
know how to convince this person. It's an uncle, and two uncles, they don't talk to each other for like 30 years. They're cousins. Because one uncle, he married his daughter to a man who put uncle number 2 in jail like 30, 40 years ago for something back in Pakistan. I don't know what it was, some trouble.
Sounds like it.
So how would you convince a person like that? Hey, forgive him. And they live maybe 100 miles from each other, or whatnot. They live
Here
in the
or
same,
there?
abstract place.
Okay.
But they don't see each other,
Mm.
they're in a foreign land.
Yeah.
They're
No.
not-
Yeah. Next question.
Like, how do you convince a person like that?
I don't
So
know.
deep?
I mean, is there anybody who they respect? First, I look at two opposing parties. Is there somebody that's mutual in the middle that they both will listen to? And you don't have to answer it now. A mother, some father, some sheikh, some imam, some somebody, right? If they can try to do the reconciliation, that helps, right? And that's something that we can all do, right? If I know two people that aren't talking, kind of like how the thing happened in Davis, obviously unsuccessful, but no big deal. We tried. If you can try to bring a neutral party to help them reconcile, that may work. That neutral party shouldn't just be anybody. It should be somebody who is somewhat respected among both of them. And if he respects that person, but they don't respect that, maybe you can approach another person where they can try to formulate this game plan. And if that doesn't work, just put them both in jail. It's like, I don't know. May Allah make it easy. You just try to be strategic in that sense. If you know anybody who can help out with that.
And I'm curious, let's say they forgive each other, but they decline to meet each other. Like, they forgive each other in their hearts, they don't have that heavy weight. Is that true forgiveness, that they don't meet and they're like family, you know what I mean?
So, and that's a good thing
They
too.
just say like to each their
For sure. That's a good thing. Like, say you and I, we go way back. We just don't see eye to eye, right? I don't like you, you don't like me. Something happened between us where we both got upset and we were just very angered, can't even look at you in the face, and likewise. Somebody comes in, says, you know what, you guys just forgive each other, like just move on. We can do that. doesn't mean we have to go and eat pizza together, right? It doesn't mean we have to now go to Starbucks and hang out and become best friends and stuff like that. I can forgive you and just still live my own life, and you can do the same, right? So same thing happens though. The default picture is that at least we flushed out the negative feelings for one another and maybe formally have accepted one another and, you know, let bygones be bygones and just moved on our separate ways. That's still better than, you know, trying to slash out at each other's necks in that sense. So yeah, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to be best friends, right? I don't want to leak out. I've shared some of the stories of our talk in the next 2 weeks, but there'll be story after story about how the Prophet forgave, and I'll leave that for that time. I don't know how we're doing with time. 8:19, 8:20. Very good. Good. وإياكم.
So can we give a round of applause for Chef Fahmi? Mashallah, he drove all the way out after a long day.
No
just to come
worries.
and speak to us.
All
So
good.
Allah reward him.
Well worth it. Jazakallah khair.